Welcome to another episode of Hiring and Empowering Solutions podcast. My name is Molly McGrath, and I am so excited for today's podcast. We are going to just jump right in with Jaclyn Foster. Jaclyn, thank you for being our guest today.
Hi, Molly. Yeah, I'm so glad to be back here again. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I want you to tell everyone, get you all set up with what our conversation is going to be about today. We are talking about the pandemic inflated paralegal and what you absolutely need to know now in regards to growing your practice. And Jaclyn is no better person than Jaclyn to be here with us today. Jaclyn, tell us a little bit about your business and what you are seeing right now in this crazy, insane market in the legal space.
Sure. So I started my business actually during the middle of the pandemic, where all paralegals and legal staff alike were getting furloughed, laid off, sent home, work from home. I started right in the thick of it. And I specialize in 1099 staffing for law firms. So we find 1099 senior level paralegals, top level paralegals nationwide in all practice areas to support growing transition phase firms, to support their growth on their terms so that they can have less hours committed to for their paralegal. They don't have to commit to the 20 to 40 hours per week. A lot of my firms, they can't even find access. They don't even have access to senior level paralegals in their area or somebody with any experience, let alone senior level. So we really fill that gap for these firms, small and solo firms that struggle to find quality staff and also struggle to afford quality staff by offering them this innovative approach to contract work and staffing on a freelance basis. So fast forward 1 year now, the pandemic is slowing down and everybody's heading back into the office. There's a fresh breath, new air. Everybody is ready to get back to reality in life and get these firms running back up. But what they're finding is that the staffing model doesn't look exactly the same anymore. So they're maybe trying to fill those positions that they had to let go. Maybe they did do contract work for a little while during the pandemic, and now they're coming back ready to hire W-2 again. But they're hitting this wall and realizing, and I think you yourself, Molly, we talk about this, you're finding as a recruiter, the market is just incredibly different post-pandemic or soon to be post-pandemic. So what we're really struggling with now with my clients is to try to fill that gap again on a W-2 basis and realizing it doesn't look the same anymore. Some firms have struggled during the pandemic and had to let go of paralegals, while others completely thrived during the pandemic and needed to increase their staff. So first of all, those firms that have completely thrived have really taken over a lot of the market that we had in paralegals, while those firms that struggled and had to lay off they've lost those employees. So truthfully, and as we discussed today, the paralegal staffing world is just completely night and day compared to what it was pre-pandemic. And I think that it's important for firms to understand this and not ignore this change in order to maintain their staffing growth and how they're going to keep their businesses above float coming out of the pandemic. Because a lot of firms are taking advantage of this post-pandemic. A lot of clients are coming in. There's a lot, the ebb and flow is way up. So it's important to get ahead of it and create a solution before you recognize the problem, if that makes sense.
It sure does. I mean, you and I talk about this all the time, and I'm seeing the exact same thing. Right now, we have probably 15 positions across the nation for attorneys and paralegals alike that we're trying to staff for. And as you know, most of the law firms we work with are small, solo, medium-sized firms. And it is impossible right now. Number one, the market is so tight in the legal space. So all this talk about unemployment being, I have no idea. It's not happening in the professional space at all. And to your point, getting ahead of it, like you said, is critical right now, because law firms are calling us already way too late. So sort of holding their breath during the pandemic, kind of wait and see. Even if their businesses were thriving, I heard from a lot of firms that they weren't sure how long it was going to last. They had to deal with the virtual setting. They had to quote unquote pivot, things of that nature. So they felt forced to try some, for the first time, 1099 and contract paralegals. And I mean, to your point, you and I are talking before we even started recording today, and many mutual firms that we work with, it's changed their practice in a good way, in a positive way. And so some people were forced to get in there. Other people didn't. They had the average person wearing 3.5 hats, being highly understaffed. We're now starting to come out of the pandemic, whether it's been officially classified as that. What I'm seeing is human beings are self-designating that, and they are choosing to get on with their life, start living, and really start to find their new footing and their new normal. And going back into an office right now, we have so many firms that are like, nope, I want somebody back in the office. Yeah, this, that, and the other thing. And we're talking to candidates like, no, in order for these law firms to be competitive, they need to really step up and start making these positions attractive for us. We don't want to go back to the office. We're more efficient working in the office. So I would love for you to kind of speak into this, getting ahead in what you're seeing from a place of efficiency in the 1099 space.
Absolutely. So like you said, you nailed it on the head. Paralegals aren't wanting to, a lot of them are not wanting to go back to the firm. There are a handful of paralegals that find homework is just too distracting and, they have kids running around. Sure. But here's the difference though, is that now they're able to work from home and still send their kids to school, send them to daycare. Things are opening back up. And the majority, I work with hundreds and hundreds of paralegals each month. I also have I have a side business going on with helping paralegals take more control of their career, because many paralegals are wanting to break into the contract world, mainly because they're scared now that they've gotten so comfortable working from home. They know they can wake up in their pajamas, get right to work, be productive immediately in the morning, don't have to do the commute, etc. And they're home to, attend to the cable man, to tend to the random things that come up during the week. So they feel that they want to hang on to that. And while they're seeing some firms transitioning out and going back to in-firm 100% of the time, they're feeling stuck. So we have two types of paralegals right now. One of them is really much looking for full-time remote positions. I see it left and right across the board on these big 14,000 people groups I'm in for paralegals. Does anybody know of full remote work? And everybody gets on there. My firm's hiring remote. My firm's hiring remote. And they all ask, is it long-term? Yes, we've decided. Many firms have actually transitioned to saying, we're going to go virtual, because they're seeing the cost savings, not having that dedicated office space, not having the commutes. Also, what they're finding is that if you have the right paralegal, of course, there's paralegals and employees in every walk of life out there that are going to be less honest and maybe not as on top of things from home, because they just don't carry that level of maturity to handle something like that. But they're finding even sick days are going down. Personal leave days are going down, because what paralegals are learning is, or realizing, is that I might feel a little under the weather, where putting on my heels or my dress suit or my suit and tie or whatever they need to look like to go into your firm sounds impossible, but sitting on the couch with my laptop and getting work done does not. So they're eliminating those types of issues. Paralegals and legal staff in general are enjoying that ability, that now it's something they're demanding. And so likewise, paralegals are in high demand right now. A lot of firms let go of paralegals. Other firms swoop them up. Now you got to compete with that firm that swooped them up to try to get them back or find somebody else. And they just can't compete. The market has gone up and what they're paying paralegals. I'm seeing crazy offers across the board coming out that even in the small town, little rural areas, you wouldn't have seen 2-3 years ago, where and truthfully, another thing to remember is that the paralegal job description and just in general, the view of the paralegal is changing, because they've demanded attention from the American Bar Association to differentiate them from your legal assistant and to not use those terms synonymously and say paralegals are a heightened professional in the legal industry. They're not your secretary. They're not doing admin tasks. They're doing attorney level work, and they're demanding that type of respect and pay compensation in consideration to that further, you look at Arizona leading the way to allowing paralegals to now represent laymen and the general public in some small court proceedings and start to actually do more with career versus just working in firm for an attorney or working for an insurance agency or a bank. Their career ability is starting to broaden. And a lot of paralegals are burning out in firm because of the stress, because of office politics that come up, et cetera, that they're also seeing, wow, this contractor role is really becoming lucrative and I want in. And so I'm actually coaching right now. I have a group of 35 paralegals for my beta testing group that they want to learn how to create their own contractor business and offer their services directly out to the public. They don't have any intention of going back to firm after they've been laid off. So it's really starting to change. And it's important that firms recognize this, not ignore it, and really try to get on with the trends as pushback as you may see, as it may feel, and you want to push back from it. Change isn't always negative. And to say, is this a good thing or a bad thing? We'll say maybe. We don't know yet until we see the outcomes from what happens with this. But paralegals are benefiting from having this control. But over this last year, the amount of benefits my clients have received from going the contract route is just immeasurable. Savings, cost savings, we're talking 20,000 plus per year, retention, turnover rates, payroll costs, office space, equipment, unproductive hours, unneeded hours they're saving on by going the contracted route. And I can tell you that at least probably a 95% of my clients, if not 100%, those 5, we may be trying to restaff to find them the right contractor right now, will say that their paralegal very much operates as their paralegal. And even though they're contract-based, their clients get the feeling that they're their paralegal. They don't see work, missing or being undone. They're benefiting from it as well. So it's important that we all come together and just ride this wave of change.
Wow. And some of the benefits, to your point, are even the time, energy, and frustration of having to onboard and train and hire, and then be able to babysit and manage paralegals that are in the office as W-2 employees versus 1099. What I love that you just said is even that they're demanding the credibility and the respect. And going this 1099 route, wouldn't you say that they really come with a whole different level of mindset and ownership?
That's ideal. So if you get a great contractor, and this is what I'm teaching my paralegals, is they're no longer employees. They have to keep customer service at their forefront. I just had a conversation with one of my clients this morning. We're restaffing her with a new 1099 paralegal. And she asked, how do you handle that when you let one go? And I said, I'm not trying to sound harsh about this, but it's pretty simple. You say, this isn't working. I would like to end the contract. And then you move on versus, the W-2, you got to think of a lot of things, a lot of potential lawsuits. You have to think about what the unemployment tax is going to increase based upon how many times you're hiring, et cetera. So yes, it is. It's just, there's that benefit. And so the paralegal understands when they run their own business that it can be overnight. They can choose to end their contract overnight with you. So they really show up in a different way and a level of professionalism that is really hard to come by when you're hiring in firms.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So talk to us a little bit about the attorney that's like, nope. I want someone in the office. What would you say to them in regards to they have to get on board and start at least exploring this and having it as an option, or else really, truly, they're going to be left behind, so to speak. It really could be detrimental to your business and your growth if we don't necessarily, I don't necessarily love it anymore. I've shared this with you. I've had some of my employees that have gotten poached away from me. It is a volatile, shark-infested market out there. The employees are in the driver's seat right now. The contractor, employee, however you coin it or discern it. What would you say to these attorneys that really have their heads in the sand? They're managing, professional law firm administrators that your team is invincible, not to think that they're not going to get poached away for somebody else that could have maybe a virtual 1099 situation for them.
I can tell them that even the most loyalist sounding W-2, you think I'll never lose mine. They love working for me. I give them freedom. I give them the ability to feel like they're in control of their work schedule. Whatever you're offering them, please always know that they're looking for better. Maybe not 100% of the time. Of course, there are those paralegals that are lifetime, 45 years with one firm. That's the golden ticket that you maybe will find maybe in your career. But they are looking. I'm in these groups, 14,000 people. They're constantly posting, I'm with a firm right now. I love working for them. We've grown as a family, but I'm offered these extra benefits moving with somebody else, triple my pay, less of a commute, et cetera, et cetera. And everybody gets on there. No brainer, leave the firm, leave the firm. This is a career. This is a professional decision, not a personal one. So you need to go. And that, honestly, if you're not offering those benefits and those good packages for employees, the average national rate for not offering that is 158% increase on turnover because of that, because that's how simple it is for another company to take your employee away just by simply offering them benefits, which in this country we absolutely need health benefits, insurance. So even if you think, just like the paralegals that come in and say, I don't want to do contract work because I like my cushy 9 to 5, it's guaranteed employment. They also know very well that it's not guaranteed, just like the contract world isn't. And it's really important to understand change is so tough in this industry. The practice of law is such a, oh God, how would you word it? A very old, long-standing practice dating back to how long ago, where the attorneys are still using those god ugly accordion files to go to court. I love the look too. Trust me, I do. But I think when you look back into how this legal field has changed, think back to when we used to have to make a 5 o'clock filing on a motion. We had to rush down to the courthouse at 4:30 in the afternoon and paper file something. Now we have till 11:59 at night to get in an appeal to the Court of Appeals. We have those extended deadlines now because how things are changing. Technology is improving. I have some firms that their specific county has not gotten with the times, for instance, on e-filing yet, which when it was first rolling out e-filing in Minnesota, it was one of the first states to really jump on board for this. There was a lot of pushback and rejection for it. Nobody wanted it. They didn't trust the system. They're like, what happens if it gets filed and lost and you don't file stamp it in time for me? I need to give you that paper copy or I'm not sure it's getting done. Now look at the trust and the change that most attorneys that have gone the e-filing route, when the pandemic hit, they didn't know what to do with themselves when courts were shutting down and, things like that. But those courts that had the e-filing in place, nothing really changed for them except remote hearings. Trials are getting pushed out, scheduling chaos, but nothing else changed. They were still able to get their documents into the court. It was pandemic proofed at that point to some extent. That's the same with staffing, is that we're never guaranteed in this country. And I think these last couple of years has proven that to everybody. We're never guaranteed that we're going to open our eyes tomorrow and that things are going to be cushy and the safe and the same, and that we're not going to have to adapt to change. The contract world and hiring professional contractors that are, 15 plus years of experience as paralegals is showing that it will keep your business afloat even during the hardest of times, because you don't have to worry about, well, I can't keep them full time. I can't even keep them part-time now. Somebody else is going to swoop them up. These are contractors. They're businesses. They want your customer. They want your business, and they're going to work hard to keep it, whatever that means. I had a firm today tell me, can I please back down from my contract and just go as needed until things pick back up? You know what? That firm has been wonderful. I really appreciate their business. I said, absolutely. You let me know when you're ready to ramp back up. That's how flexible contract world is. W-2 is not like that. And it's very much coming clear now that everybody's trying to go back to it.
Oh, wow. So much that you just said is, and to your point, I mean, paralegals, you can charge for their time. And when they are independent, like you said, contract, they're so resourceful. They use terminology like our clients. They know that if your business is impacted or you don't have the business or what have you, my goodness, they will do everything they can to go to your database, to go to your files, to go everywhere they need to go ahead and find money.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. They are definitely a different mindset. And truthfully, the contractors that don't succeed in this industry of doing the 1099 contracted work is because they come into it still thinking they're an employee. So when you find the right contractors, which is what I specialize in, they approach it that I am going to stretch your dollar as far as it'll possibly go because I don't want to lose you as a client. So I'm always going to be amendable to what you need and make they come with a different level of flexibility than you'll ever find in a W-2. Not to mention, I have clients that have to wait a month or so to pay my bill because, some things are wrapping up on their end and maybe, I'm the last one on their list to pay. I'm still covering their contractor's pay and making sure that they're there for them and no work stalls. Could you ever imagine taking a week to pay somebody payroll without them throwing a fit? You have no flexibility there. And it just, I think the pandemic has inflated that paralegal so much that we have to adjust to what it looks like now, not what it looked like 2 years ago.
Yeah. And there are needs for W-2s. So
Absolutely.
I think the whole message is just really how it is very much a pandemic inflated paralegal, whether they are W-2 or they are 1099. And here's why, guys, you need to hear this because even if they are W-2, the ability to work from home, the ability to have flexibility, the ability to be able to do all the things that we have pointed out, and they come with entrepreneur mindset. To Jaclyn's point, if you some people W-2 does work. They want to be paying into Social Security and everything else that's important to them. But at the end of the day, you have to have flexibility. You have to be ahead of this, and you have to understand paralegals are more in demand than attorneys. They are more entrepreneurial in how they are approaching their workload in their business than the average quote unquote associate attorney who wants six figures and the hope and promise of partner track or a hope and promise of an exit strategy. So this really is a big deal, whether you're considering 1099, whether you're considering W-2 or a combination of both, depending on the practice area, depending on the workload, what have you. You have to be flexible in regards to PTO, in regards to autonomy, in regards to working from home, things of this nature, and paying a higher rate for people that come batteries included. Because to Jaclyn's point, we are not, and I'll be as bold to say, ever going back to the days of, like you said, the old school days where it's like, be lucky you have a job. And just take whatever job you can get and just take the beating all day long. The average human, and you are hiring human beings, they're not tolerating that anymore because guess what? They know they don't have to. Jaclyn and I are in many of the same paralegal Facebook groups, and I will use the word, the empowerment and the clarity that paralegals are seeing, and legal assistants, or legal assistants in there as well, and law clerks and people just going through their certification program. But they are very, very clear that they are one of the greatest values and assets that they bring to a law firm, and that they are in the driver's seat and they are interviewing law firms, whether it be 1099 or W-2. I would say even more so than you're interviewing them because they are in full control.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad, to back up a little bit, you stated, there's still definitely a need for a W-2. And I should make that very clear that I don't ever say, you can run a practice off of a complete 1099 relationship type setup, but I do still very strongly value the W-2 and the full-time employees or the part-time employees in office. I think that where we're looking at is to be realistic, firm by firm, what they can offer, and where they need to best allocate those resources. For instance, if you have space for one W-2, that's all you have in your budget, and you decide that that W-2 is going to be a paralegal that wears all the hats, you are basically stretching that paralegal incredibly thin and keeping them out of their zone of genius to handle your billing collections, to handle your marketing, to handle your client relationship services, to handle your attorney level, associate level work, to handle all those things where you're actually getting a little less bang for your buck. What I always recommend to the attorney that says, I need somebody in office, I agree. I think that a client should come in and see somebody sitting behind that front desk, smiling and greeting them as they come in, somebody that they can call and answers, however that looks. But does it need to be your senior level paralegal? Because that's where we're saying right now is, we're looking at somebody with not even a year of experience, or perhaps they just have some retail background and you're in a very small area and you're trying to hire them and train them up as a paralegal. The risk you're running is that even if you find a great one that you're going to train in as a paralegal, what's to say that once you invest all that time into training them into a senior level, great paralegal, 5 years from now, they decide, I'm going to move to the cities, or I'm going to up and leave and head out, leave you hanging dry. You've invested all that time into me. Goodbye. Versus if you're finding somebody that wants to be a career client services coordinator, a career quote unquote secretary of sorts that will really just specialize in running your business, the brick and mortar of your business, you can delegate as needed hours to your contractors that can handle the petition drafting, the discovery processes, all of those things where you keep everyone in their zone of genius. It's the way that you approach it innovatively to keep everybody in their zone of genius in the most strategic way possible.
Oh, I love that. All right, Jaclyn, that's a good stopping point for us. Tell us, how can people get a hold of you and get on a discovery call with you to hear more about what you are seeing in this absolute pandemic inflated paralegal space and figuring out what's a good fit for them in regards to 1099 or W-2. And I think you have an amazing calculator for them as well.
Yes, I do. We have an amazing calculator that we go through to make sure it's even financially sound on what routes we pick. They can reach me at jf-paralegalservices.com or just simply find me on LinkedIn. I'm always on there and happy to connect.
Okay. Well, thank you for being our guest today. Attorneys, it is time for you to do a deep dive and look into your staffing needs, where you're at right now and where you see yourself in 6 months from now. Please stop burying your heads in the sand. Jaclyn and I both get these phone calls all the time from people like they know they should have hired 6 months ago, or they were white knuckling the W-2 route, and not pivoting to the 1099 route, or not even really certain on what role they need to hire and which route is the best benefit for you. So please take Jaclyn up in the show notes. I will have a link to her website where you can download this free calculator, in addition to schedule a discovery call with her and have her LinkedIn profile there too, so you can connect with her. Jaclyn is constantly on LinkedIn posting a tremendous amount of value for law firms across the country. And I think that's a good stopping point for us right now.
Absolutely.
So until next time, reach out to Jaclyn. I cannot say enough in regards to figuring out what is the right role for you where you are today. And Jaclyn can absolutely help you issue spot when it is time for W-2, when it is time for 1099, and forecast ahead of time which route you should be going. So Jaclyn, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me, Molly. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
You can check us out at hiringandempowering.com. Please subscribe to our podcast, where we are constantly having value creators such as Jaclyn Foster as our guest.